Trying to learn a complex new skill, like coding or a language, by memorizing isolated facts creates an immense amount of cognitive friction. Most of us attempt to overcome this through brute force, trying to shove those standalone pieces of data directly into our working memory. But the brain has a strict biological limit. When we hit that ceiling, cognitive overload kicks in, and the data simply vanishes before it can be stored. Attempting to learn through isolated facts forces a collision with these neurological boundaries, making long-term retention almost impossible. This struggle stands in sharp contrast to polymaths and prodigies, who seem to absorb impossible amounts of information with zero effort. Some masters can play dozens of simultaneous chess games while completely blindfolded, tracking every single piece on every board entirely from memory. We usually attribute this to a photographic memory or a superhuman IQ that the rest of us simply don't have. However, when these masters are tested on random data outside their specific domain, their memory performance drops to a completely average level. Since raw intelligence isn't the deciding factor, these experts must be utilizing a specialized type of cognitive software. We can see how that software functions by looking at how a novice views a chessboard. The untrained eye sees 32 isolated data points scattered across 64 squares, each one competing for a spot in that limited working memory. The master uses a technique called chunking to view the exact same board through a different lens. Their brain automatically groups individual pieces into established historical structures, recognizing a cluster of 5 pieces as a single unit. This process compresses dozens of movements into 3 or 4 chunks, allowing the brain to hold massive information without exceeding storage limits. By identifying the underlying pattern, the master effectively shrinks the amount of data the brain has to process at any given moment. Our ancestors survived by spotting the rustle of a predator in the tall grass or identifying the seasonal cycles of ripening fruit. This pressure turned the human brain into a high-speed prediction engine. When we are forced to process chaotic, disconnected information without any context, the brain experiences a biological stress response. Conversely, when the brain successfully identifies a predictable pattern, it releases a surge of dopamine as a biological reward. Chunking works because it aligns learning with these evolutionary reward loops, turning the act of memorization into a natural biological impulse. You can apply this same exploit to your own goals, whether you're learning to write code, play an instrument, or speak a new language. Resisting the urge to start with rote memorization is key. Vocabulary lists and raw syntax rules are the least efficient way to feed the brain. Focus on the underlying architecture first. Look for repeating logic loops in code or root word frameworks in a language before worrying about details. Once the brain maps out that core framework, smaller details naturally attach themselves without conscious effort. Rapid learning happens when you deliberately present information to your brain in its native language, the language of patterns.